The snow is falling, but the Bears are rising. That's right. We've got a great show for you today. Chris Canty, Braggs gets to battle it out with his ESPN nemesis. We're talking to Corey Wooten to honor Virginia McCaskey to start the show, which starts right now. All right. Come on down, Mekhi Becton. Come on. Look at you, Gregory. Is it? Hey, Braggs.
Yes, sir.
Aren't you so happy that school is canceled today in so many Chicagoland locations, and we were told to stay home because it's snowing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way that we could have survived sending the young ones.
Snowpocalypse is upon us. There's half an inch of snow on the ground currently, but it does look like there will be more snow to come. So, yeah, I don't, as far as kids that went to school in your area, my kid went to school today. So, we're built different here in Northwest Indiana.
Thank you, Indiana. I mean, come on, that means that Illinois needs to become Indiana tough. That's not great. Hey, we continue our dynamic coming out of the Super Bowl week today. You were very excited literally all Super Bowl week to run into Chris Canty, and you harassed him. So he's coming up in about 12 minutes here, which I know this conversation you were super excited to have. I think you became best friends with him. I got to be honest, by the end of it, not to spoil the interview. It's a good talk. You and Canty are officially on another level, correct?
Yeah, no, it was a fun interview all week at Radio Row. He's doing his thing for ESPN and ESPN Radio, and I just kept threatening him. And so eventually he took the bait and jumped on. So we'll be playing that here in a little bit. Corey Wooten should be joining us here shortly to talk about some different things. Obviously, Virginia McCaskey's wake was yesterday, and currently right now, Virginia McCaskey's funeral is underway. And I know there's a lot of different people from the NFL landscape there, including Roger Goodell, and then many others. I know that it sounds like the whole staff at Hallis Hall is there as well, and a lot of people, just paying their respects.
Yeah, I just following along on Twitter. Roger Goodell, John Mara, the Giants owner, Kim Pagula from the Bills, obviously Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson and Richard Hightower, Brian Urlacher, Richard Dent, Dan Hampton, Matt Forte, Lovie Smith, Leslie Frazier, Robbie Gold, just obviously not exactly the great circumstances to bring everybody together, but it's, just generational, different generations of Bears players and coaches coming out to honor Virginia today, which is not a surprise considering her legacy. Of course, Woot, the former Bear, is a great guest for us to have on today. So when Corey can join us in the middle of his workday, which hopefully will be soon, we'll discuss, Virginia and also a little bit of the Super Bowl as well. In addition to that, we will look ahead to the draft with Fran Duffy at the bottom of the hour here. So,
and I just got a text from Corey. Obviously he's working. So we texted him last minute, a little bit ago, and he's unfortunately unable to make it here, but we'll try to make it work with him later in the week. So we apologize about that little teaser of Corey joining, but I know, he obviously had some thoughts on Virginia that we'll let him share here down the road.
On a much lighter note, and we'll, I'll get past the Woot thing because I was getting excited, but I don't know what happened, but allergies just hit me 3 minutes before the show, and I'm in like I am having a fit of and a half over here. So if
Mhm.
you are one of the people who love me but like to root against me all at the same time, there is disaster impending at any moment here. But I think it's settling down. I medicine myself up at 11:58, Braggs, and that's how quick, because this body is so pure that the allergy medicine hits. You
Yeah.
should be impressed.
Yeah, your body is very pure. I think that's
Yeah.
one thing many people have said about you in your day. But let's pivot. There's some different things that have been talked about, here in the last 24 hours. And I think one of the things that is interesting is this discussion on who the Eagles will potentially play week 1 of the NFL season. Now that they've won the Super Bowl, obviously they'll kick things off on Thursday, September. I'd have to look it up, the exact date, because I know the night of the Super Bowl we were 207 days away. So now we're 4 days away from the NFL season kicking off. And so there's some different options. There's obviously they play 8 teams at home. But I think the most realistic options for the Eagles to potentially play, you have the Washington Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys, division rivals. Obviously, if Washington were to play, that's a rematch of the NFC Championship. Jaden Daniels versus the Eagles, I think, carries a lot of intrigue. But if you're one of those people that thinks they won't burn a divisional matchup week 1, then the Lions and the Bears are kind of staring the Eagles right in the face of who would you rather? What's the bigger matchup? What's the more intriguing matchup? On one hand, you have the Lions, who have been on the cusp of being a Super Bowl potential team, losing their whole coaching staff, but obviously still going to be a very good team next year. And then you have the Bears with Ben Johnson and the Chicago media market. For you, if I laid out those 4 teams and you had to guess right now, Carm, where are you putting your money on what the NFL would do to have a week 1, kickoff?
Well, okay, so just since Roger's in town, and I'm assuming that he's making time to watch this podcast, the Bears absolutely do not belong on opening week with Philadelphia. That would be a terrible idea. It's there's no reason to put a Midwest team against an East Coast team, 2 major cities like that. I mean, I know it sounds like it's absolutely ideal, the passion of the Eagles fan, the passion of the Bears fan, but the Bears don't need to be opening up with the Super Bowl champions. That's bad for the Bears. We would like to avoid that matchup, and so I'm hoping that it does not go that way at all, because that's not how Ben Johnson deserves to start his tenure. You don't want to be taking on Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and the Philadelphia Eagles, do you? Do I think that it will be the Bears? I don't know, man. Adam Schefter seems to think there's a great chance, and he's probably having lunch with 7 big higher ups right now. So it feels like it's at least a 30% chance, right?
Rich Eisen also felt like it will be the Bears. So, obviously some of the bigger media guys are already building that momentum that way. I mean, so to be clear, we have obviously the Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders as divisional opponents for the Eagles that are an option. Maybe the Giants, draft Shedeur Sanders, and maybe that's what they want to go with. And then you have the Bears and Lions, as I mentioned. But then the other 3 teams that I didn't mention are the Rams, who were in the playoffs and did, have a close game with the Eagles in the playoffs in the snow. And then you have the Broncos and Raiders. Broncos obviously made the playoffs with Bo Nix, and then the Raiders with Pete Carroll. Maybe the Raiders end up with Aaron Rodgers. If I was Aaron Rodgers, I'd probably go to the Steelers, but that's yet to be determined on who the Raiders quarterback will be at this point. So I do find it interesting. Obviously, I think most Bears fans are kind of over the prime spot week 1, and we got obviously the Titans to start this last year, and that was certainly beneficial. But at the same time, I think Bears fans need to brace for the idea that they're going to have a primetime game either way. You're either playing the Eagles to start the season, or you're going to potentially play the Green Bay Packers on primetime to start the year to honor Virginia McCaskey, right? Like, isn't that another angle that the NFL is going to look at. Like, they haven't properly honored Virginia McCaskey. So you play your first home game at home, Soldier Field, Bears versus Packers. And, they do a whole ceremony for Virginia McCaskey, put like an emblem on the field and a patch on the jersey.
Why do you need a marquee opponent to do that? I don't exactly, that doesn't completely add up for me. Look, we're speculating, we're guessing. I just want to remind everybody that, and myself, last year it turned out to not be good for the Bears to have the easier games at the start of the schedule and then the tougher games later in the schedule. The schedule is absolutely daunting, the road part of it for sure. So as I am talking myself around in circles here, would it be better just to let's get the road disasters out early here? Let's just start on the road with Philadelphia, let them celebrate, have their moment, get to 0-1 quickly, and reset and let Ben Johnson see how far away this Bears team actually is to the top of the NFL. Maybe that is the best way. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it right now, Brett Gregory. It's February the 12th. We'll see. If I would like, what I would like about this matchup if the Bears, maybe stole a couple of Eagles players away from him. We could have that going on when they meet Philly. That would be exciting to me more than whenever they play them. But yeah.
Yeah, I get it. It's the Bears have a lot more business to attend to before we start worrying about what the schedule is. Obviously, it's just a fun topic. And Schefter, putting that take out, and Rich Eisen and some different people obviously was at the forefront of just some fan conversation, silly offseason fan conversation as we start to, gear towards the NFL Combine and draft coverage. Fran Duffy, who is our ALLCITY draft expert. And if you're subscribed as a diehard, you get access to his database that is ever evolving and always updating. He'll be joining us at 12:30 to get everyone clued in on who the Bears should be looking at in the draft. And also we're going to talk to him as somebody that, covers the Eagles for our guys over at PHLY. They just did a Super Bowl championship post-game show, and watching that, I certainly was jealous and dreaming of the day that we get to do our CHGO Bears podcast Super Bowl championship post-game show. That'll be a fun time. So Fran will be joining us a little bit to hear some of his takes in that regard, but I certainly was jealous watching them do that show.
Yeah, I subscribed, I shared, I watched, I jealoused.
Yes, we definitely jealous.
I'm like, I was just sitting with those people all week, and it was funny when we were leaving New Orleans. I'm like, yeah, when's your flight leaving, Zach? Well, I'm staying for the game. Oh yeah, right. Your team that you cover is in the Super Bowl.
Could you imagine?
You've been talking about that all week long. No, I could not imagine. And if that ever happened for this show and you were down there in the entire week, the way you act with us at 5 and 12, the insanity of you in Super Bowl week, if you put the Bears in the game, yeah, I'm not sure you're coming home. All right, so we're gonna get to our friend Chris Canty coming up here, which I looked Chris Canty in the eyes, and I asked him about his playing career with the Giants, and compared it to the Bears, and the steam started coming up, off the old forehead there. So that was he gets pretty into this. So I think people are going to enjoy it. And then, of course, we'll get into the draft. And we might even have a stop with Daryl Johnston, which was a great conversation as well. One of Hoag's favorites. By the way, I hear Hoag is doing great and is just crushing water slides on his vacation with his family. So
you got in contact with him?
Yes, we have been. Well, he hasn't talked to you?
I haven't heard from Hoag since he's since we left
I
New
have
Orleans.
no idea why he would try to avoid you for a week and maybe just get a little time away from you. I don't know why he would do such a thing. But
That's fine.
first,
Not taking it personal.
no, I'm sure you're not. But first, shout out to our friends at Chevy. The auto show deals are going on right now at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake. That means the latest vehicles you've been looking at are now priced with huge auto show savings. Here at $11,000 off MSRP on the new Chevy models. Check out the selection, 125 vehicles. You know it. They're priced under $20,000. It's one of Chicago's largest Chevy inventories. You will find the vehicle you are looking for. Plus, you get the Ray price promise. You know, because of a guarantee of no add-ons, no hidden fees, no gimmicks. The price you see is the price you will pay. There's no price changing, no negotiating, no tricks, nothing. Ray Chevrolet, they want to keep it exactly what you see online, the right vehicle at the right price. And by the way, don't miss out. Just don't do this on the auto show sales event going on all month long. Be the star of the show. Take $11,000 off MSRP today by shopping at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. Serving the community since
1963.
Together, let's drive.
Together, let's drive, and together, let's be centered in our camera. No, I'm kidding with you, Carmen. I love you. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to our guys over at Hooters. Love our new partners with Hooters. Love chicken wings. Nobody does it better than Hooters. And, you know, March Madness is right around the corner. We're grinding down to the end of the Big Ten season. I may or may not have had a complete meltdown watching my Purdue Boilermakers fall to the Michigan Wolverines last night. But everything's a little better when you're watching your favorite college basketball team when you hit up Hooters. And they take care of the people as well. Hooters is donating a portion of chicken wing sales to Holy Family Schools, helping fund tuition, books, classroom supplies, and more for kids in under-resourced communities. And they support Chicagoland Hooters family. They've raised over $1 million since 1992. So let's keep it going because kids can't fly without wings. So pre-order your wings for the big games today. All orders picked up before 3 p.m. Anytime you're trying to get them. Grab your game day feast and save money next time. It's a win-win. Be the MVP of your March Madness party and, you know, your Big Ten parties with Hooters to go. Order online now at order.hooters.com and score big. And go watch the biggest games of the year at one of their 11 Chicagoland Hooters locations. Find the closest one to you at originalhooters.com. The big games go better with hot wings, cold beer, and your favorite cheerleaders, the Hooters girls. Hooters is your football and basketball and baseball headquarters. Hot wings, cold beer all day long. And so we appreciate them very, very much. And you can check out any of those locations: Aurora, Countryside, Downers Grove, Joliet, Lansing, Melrose Park, Oak Lawn, O'Hare, Orland Park, Schaumburg, and Wells Street. You can even order online for pickup and delivery. Check them out at originalhooters.com. Appreciate Hooters.
Love you, Hooters. It was awesome to be at Hooters in spirit last night and watch the Michigan bench outscore the Purdue bench 21-0, and see the Wolverines, who I never root for, get a victory over Purdue. But that was one bleep. Let's move on to our bear watching segment with our friends from Right On. Get yourself these sweet, sweet, sweet binoculars. Shout out to our friends at Right On Optics, RITON optics.com. Bear watching with our guy.
Those binoculars are so good that when you look into them, Carm, you can actually see the last time you were a young man.
These binoculars are so good that I can look into them and not see you, but I can see Chris Canty. What's up, Chris? Talk to us. This was Bragg's tracked him down. He was a good sport. See a lot of you talking about Chris Canty. He's always about clicks. Everybody in this business is about clicks. We all want you watching. It's just so don't hate on the guy for having an opinion. He's allowed to have one. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Here we go with Chris Canty.
We are live here at Radio Row here in New Orleans. Yes, my voice is crackling because it is the final day of Radio Row. We're running on fumes. Chris Canty from ESPN joins the show. How we doing? How you holding up?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you all for having me. This is a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to being able to do Super Bowl week.
Yeah.
So I want to let you know, the entire week, this guy, and New Orleans, you're winning. You officially got me coming into today. But this guy's been chasing everybody around, and he has wanted to talk to you more than like literally anyone
100%.
else.
He knows because I've been hawking him in because, hey, we're from Chicago. You know you trigger Bears fans on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so I had to come on. We had to do a little sparring session to finish the week. I don't have the stamina I did on Monday when I was ready for you, but I'm ready to go toe-to-toe with you, Chris. So
before we even say that, I just want everybody in Chicago, everybody that's a fan of Chicago sports teams, I got nothing but love for you.
Let's go.
I want good things for Chicago sports fans because, quite frankly, the franchises that you root for have beaten you down over the years.
That's right.
You deserve better. I just
do.
want to get that out there.
Uh-huh.
I root for Chicago sports fans. My wife is from Chicago. She grew up in Beverly. My mother-in-law lives in Hyde Park.
There you
so
go.
listen, Chicago ties run deep. I want good things for Chicago sports fans.
Say you're sorry. Say you're sorry.
No, I'm not falling for the bait and switch. He's trying to
It's
butter
not a bait
us
and
up.
switch. I got married at the Chicago Cultural Center. It's not a bait and switch.
I got you. It's people like this that are the problem because they don't want to hear the truth and they just want to fight back. But go
They
ahead.
want to be angry.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, it's misdirected anger.
It is.
The anger should be directed at the McCaskey family, at management for the Chicago Bears, team president Kevin Warren, general manager Ryan Poles, and the previous revolving door that has been the former head coaches. You're not angry with me. You're angry with the mismanagement of the franchise.
Yeah, we're certainly frustrated to a large extent, so it is hard when you guys go in on us because you're right. We just want to get to the
What's your best
mountaintop.
pushback? What's your best pushback? Give him something good. I want to hear
Well,
it.
I guess I'd want to know, like, why do you think that it's where the state of the Chicago Bears is? Let's start with you. Why do you think it's gone completely awry? Because I understand this year has been frustrating, but the silver lining is you end up with Ben Johnson. So the process feels like it is turning a corner, even though this year's results were as frustrating for any Bears fan that we've had to have in quite some time.
Well, I respect the process that they went through to land on Ben Johnson being their next head coach, right? They interviewed over a dozen candidates. My only question is, why didn't they do this last year? Why would you not put your quarterback and your head coach on the same timeline? It made no sense to keep Matt Eberflus if you felt like he could be gone months away from making a decision to bring him back in 2024. And then we've seen the gross mismanagement, the poor game management from the head coach. It's not as if these issues just popped up this season. They have been ever present since Eberflus has been the head coach. Like, Flus does not have a great reputation when it comes to overall game management.
100%.
And you knew that. So why would you then put him with a rookie quarterback? It just makes no sense.
Well, let me rewind so I can just get caught up here. Would you have traded Justin?
Yes, I would have traded
You would have traded
Fields.
Justin. Would you have drafted Caleb?
I would have drafted Caleb.
You would have drafted Caleb.
Yeah.
Okay, so your main contention with the Bears right now is that they put Caleb in a terrible position year one. You
But
would
then I
have.
guess-
Here's what I would say, though. Here's what I would say. In saying that I would have drafted Caleb, I would have drafted a quarterback the year prior.
Okay,
So I would have
punted. You would have punted on Justin earlier.
When I had the number 1 overall pick, instead of flipping that to the Carolina Panthers and letting them draft Bryce Young, I would have drafted C.J. Stroud. The opportunity cost of hanging on to Justin Fields a year late, the opportunity cost of passing on to Jaden Daniels, those are things that you have to have, that you have to hang on the general manager because it's his responsibility to filter through all of it and decide what the best pathway is for the Chicago Bears when it comes to the quarterback.
So if I went through the first tape, you would be saying at the time that CJ was better than Bryce?
Yes.
You would have said, wow.
Yes. The college football playoff game against Georgia told me all I needed to know. Losing Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first half, and then in effect leading what should have been a game-winning drive, had the kicker not missed, That was all I needed to know from CJ. And if you remember that game, CJ Stroud not only showed you the arm talent, but he showed you that he can use his legs to get himself out of trouble.
See, and just for the record, and you can have the rest of this, I try to make that point that, yeah, it was a sweet trade. But if CJ turns out to be the best quarterback of all of it, then he's worth Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, Torrey Taylor, all of it. If he's that guy. Now, he did step back this year. Now, of course, if Caleb gets there, that's fantastic.
Back, but he won his division for a second year in a row, and he won a playoff game a second year in a row.
All I said was step back. I didn't say he fell off a cliff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was a little – he didn't – I mean, it was hard to not step back from what he put out his first year.
Now, I'll say this much. Okay, you said last year trade Justin Fields. You would have drafted Caleb Williams. Check. But I think the silver lining and where I might say something like, who were you going to hire as head coach? I wanted Jim Harbaugh. A lot of Bears fans wanted Jim Harbaugh. But the reality
the organization didn't want Jim Harbaugh
the reality
inexplicably.
And the reality is Jim likely was going to go to L.A. no matter what. We can't say that with certainty, but it just felt that way, that he wanted to go back to that side of the coast. So you could have hired Ben Johnson a year ago. But now his resume is a little more developed. He said he needed another year to cook in the oven as a coach. And so I'm curious, you said you liked the process with Ben Johnson, but how do you like the aspects of Ben Johnson now being the coach and the opportunity that how high do you think he can be as a head coach?
Well,
is he a Kyle Shanahan?
Well, I don't know if he's going to be Kyle Shanahan. Only time will tell. But I do like what Ben Johnson has done in terms of flanking himself with experienced coaches, right? He goes out and he gets Dennis Allen as his defensive coordinator, and Dennis Allen has been a head coach twice over in this league.
Right.
That matters. Going out and getting a smart offensive mind in Declan Doyle to be his OC. That matters. Bringing a lieutenant like Antoine Randall in. That matters. Like, to me, being able to have experienced coaches and smart people in the room is only going to elevate Ben Johnson. The part that concerned me about it was Ben Johnson and the learning curve that comes along with being a first-time head coach.
Sure.
And so being able to have able lieutenants that you can trust when you start to delegate responsibilities is going to matter in terms of Ben Johnson being able to do the job.
I think it's been an all-star coaching staff. Eric Bieniemy is a running backs
no
coach.
Doubt.
Al Harris, a DB's coach. You got Antoine Randall.
And Al Harris has done a great job at being able to make all-pro corners, man. You look at his resume, he's done a phenomenal job 100%. At being able to take guys that aren't necessarily premier draft picks and turn them into all-pro talents.
He's going to help Tyreek Stevenson, right? And so now you've got
Tyreek Stevenson needs a lot of help.
Yep. So you've got Antoine Randall and JT Barrett that follow over. So that to me is exciting, and I think that's where he's going to be able to do his job, where you have all these other people able to, kind of do what the Lions did in terms of a culture.
Yeah.
How important is that to you? Because, you watch the Lions coaching staff, it's a lot of former players, and and I don't know how many former players were your coaches back in the day, but, do you feel like that's something that more teams need to tap into the way the Lions have?
Well, I don't think it can hurt to have somebody that has had the experience and being on the field. The practical application of the stuff that you're learning in the classroom matters, because you can draw it up one way, but we all understand it's something different when you put your feet on the grass.
Right.
And having people that understand that matters in terms of being able to communicate the game to the players and have that shared vision. And that was the thing that excited me the most in what Ben Johnson said at his introductory press conference. He talked about the quarterback specifically in Caleb Williams, but it's applicable to everybody in the locker room. Making sure that the quarterback sees the game through the play caller's eyes.
Boom.
Seeing the game through the play caller's eyes on offense, defense, special teams matters. And when you have a coach that's aware of that, the importance of it, I think it lends itself to being able to have success in our league.
You spoke highly of Declan Doyle, and I found that interesting because he's kind of a large unknown to a lot of us. So why do you like Declan Doyle so much?
When you look at the coaching pedigree, I think that's the part that you trust. And then, of course, the touch points that Declan Doyle has had, the systems that he's worked in with the systems that Ben Johnson has worked in, just that familiarity, I think it's going to create an opportunity for synergy in terms of them being able to work together. Ben Johnson is going to call the plays, but he's got to trust that the person that's doing the film breakdowns of the upcoming opponent, the person that's putting together the downs and distances, that you want to use certain play calls, that you want to use certain play designs. I think that stuff matters. Having somebody that you trust in that role is absolutely critical when it comes to the game day operation, and Ben Johnson being at his best with what we've known him to be in the NFL, which is an awesome play designer and an awesome play sequencer, right?
Yep.
It's not just having great plays. It's knowing when to use them. It's knowing the circumstances. It's being able to set up plays in the first and second quarter for things that you want to do in the third and fourth quarter. You got to be able to trust the guy next to you as your offensive coordinator. And I think that Declan Doyle fits that mold for what Ben Johnson is going to need.
Sweet.
So let me just play amateur psychologist to wrap this up here. I think that Chris's beef with the Bears is, I mean, you played for the Cowboys, not exactly a model organization, 29 years since they've been to the NFC Championship game. And now you did win a Super Bowl with the Giants, but like I think that you could see how the top can impact the body of work, and so you're feeling for Bears players. That's what I see.
Yeah, I feel for Bears players. I feel for Chicago sports fans. Listen, I hold people accountable, and I think there is plenty to hold the Chicago Bears organization accountable for. Now, I know that they're grieving right now with the loss of their matriarch, and so we have to respect that, and I do. But I think it's hard to ignore the dysfunction, the mismanagement that we've seen years on end. And at some point, it's got to stop. And I'm hoping that the Ben Johnson era of Bears football is that moment.
I'm just curious, like watching Hard Knocks and seeing the Giants underlined, does that look like the Giants that you remembered?
No, I don't recognize this team.
Okay.
I don't recognize this team, and it's unfortunate. I am disappointed in the decisions that the New York Giants have made. And the concern about the perception of who they are, so much so that you brought back a general manager and a head coach that were complicit in torpedoing the franchise. The moment on Hard Knocks where Joe Shane says that the identity of our team is not going to be a $13 million a year running back, the irony of the identity of the team representing the NFC in the Super Bowl being that same $13 million a year running back is embarrassing. And as somebody that has blood in the ground in MetLife Stadium with that organization, somebody that's won a championship, got their name on that Super Bowl trophy, I can tell you, this New York Giants franchise is a far cry from the team that I once represented on the biggest stage the game has to offer.
See, and bring it all back to you, Bears fans. I mean, look, it could be worse. We could be watching Saquon out there.
You could be the Giants.
Seriously.
It could be Bears fans. It could be worse.
Yeah.
You could be my Giants.
Yeah.
So be glad you're not that.
Yeah. The MVP of the league is running around, or I understand that he didn't get it, but he you can certainly make an argument that he deserved it.
Well,
Saquon was unbelievable this year.
I had a feeling through some of our interaction this week that you were going to do this to me. All right, Chris, you won me over. And I think you're going to win some Bears fans over in this. So I appreciate you coming on, coming into the Bears Den. Chris Canty from ESPN, doing all sorts of stuff with ESPN Radio, ESPN First Take, and we appreciate you joining us here today.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
What a performance by you, Gregory. Good job, buddy.
Yeah, Chris was fun to talk to, interact with throughout the week. He was busy interviewing all sorts of people on Radio Row. So had some Chicago ties. He tried to butter us up with his family ties to Chicago, so we can respect it. But it was fun to interact with him and everybody on Radio Row.
Yeah. All right. I got the best comments out of him. The point that I'm trying to make here is that we've got Fran Duffy, our all-city draft expert, coming up in a second here. But first, shout out to our friends at Lucy, 100% pure nicotine. Nothing like a snow day to step outside when there's at least a half an inch of snow on the ground and get yourself a little Lucy Breaker nicotine pouch with the extra surprise. Each pouch holds a capsule that can be broken open and releases the extra flavor, the hydration. You can get that going on, and then you can set yourself up with a subscription and have a Lucy delivered straight to your door. They got all the flavors. It's delicious. It gives you the boost you're looking for. Let's level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/CHGO. Use the promo code CHGO2025. You get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Just a reminder, again, right here, lucy.co, and use the code CHGO2025 to get 20% off. Here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age. Every order is age verified, And yes, there's the warning. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
That's right. I want to give a shout out to our guys over at Factor Meal Kits. I always see people around the studio eating some Factor Meal Kits to keep their day going and flowing. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals. I know I certainly could do that based on a randomized, controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise, which is certainly important. With 40 options across dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/CHGO Bears 50 off. Once again, that's use the code CHGO Bears 50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code CHGO Bears 50 off at factormeals.com/CHGO Bears 50 off. That's 50 to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Make sure you hit up Factor for all your healthy eating needs.
To the Hooters Hot Wing Hotline we go. Shout out to our friends at Hooters. Check out all the good stuff they're doing. OriginalHooters.com. As we bring in our all-city draft expert, there he is. He's officially a Super Bowl champion draft expert, doing the great work for the PHLY Eagles podcast. Fran, have you come down from your experience of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl and looking like, I don't know, the greatest team in the history of the NFL football?
Yeah, I mean, that was the discussion we had on the postgame show on Sunday night. Is this the best Eagles team of all time? Is this the best Philadelphia sports team of all time? And just what they did against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid speaks for itself. It was a dominant performance on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and it speaks to their philosophy when it comes to team building and the NFL draft.
Do you want to play the Bears opening week?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm interested to see who they end up putting up, in that spot. The Eagles actually did not play opening night after their Super Bowl win in 2017. So we'll see what the league does here in the summer.
Yes, Greg.
Yeah. No, yeah, it'll certainly be interesting. I think Bears fans are trying to avoid the haymaker. We're not trying to be your homecoming game. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Fran, just chill out. You don't need to see the Bears.
You also don't want that smoke, Fran. We're not afraid of you guys just because you want some little piddly Super Bowl. But congrats to you. Watched your post-game show. Certainly happy for you guys and jealous as well. I can only imagine what it's like to live in that world and have a Super Bowl post-game show that you guys just got wrapped up with, and everything you guys are doing this week with Super Bowl coverage did a fantastic job. So that being said, because obviously we know you're doing a great job, building up this draft database, getting all the teams here, for ALLCITY across our 5 cities and the entire NFL landscape of like what fans should expect to get ready for the draft. But before we get to that, let's talk about the players that played in the Super Bowl, and specifically on the Eagles side of things. The Bears obviously looking hard into the trenches, and you've got a couple defensive linemen there that could potentially be available. Not sure what your feelings are on the potential to re-sign either of those D linemen, or obviously, Mekhi Becton as well, who, on the offensive side of things, the Bears certainly need some help. So just trying to get to start out, do you think any of these three or all of these three will be available for the Bears to pick from?
It's a good question. I think another one too. I mean, Zach Bond is a free agent. He played for Dennis Allen, in New Orleans, and so is that a connection that could work out? We see that so often in free agency where coach comes in and we're going to bring in some of my former guys. My guess, and we've had this conversation, honestly, going back, into the middle stages of the season, was like, all right, if you had to kind of power rank these guys in terms of who's most likely to leave, who's least likely, my guess is Josh Sweat, probably just put an exclamation point on his Eagles career with 2.5 sacks in the Super Bowl. They redid his contract going into the year. He wasn't happy with how last year ended. And so they just basically made it a 1-year deal. And so my guess is that he would not be back here in Philadelphia. I think when you look at Milton Williams, he may have priced himself out. He's set for a huge payday. I mean, he's only going to be 26 years old for next season. So this is a guy that's going to be hitting in his prime, disruptive against the run and the pass, just an outstanding interior presence who is poised to take a huge step in terms of like playing time and how he could be viewed in a defensive line rotation. And so I would say both those guys, honestly, guys, are probably going to be available. Now, Mekhi Becton, I would say probably less so. I wonder if he'll, not necessarily a hometown discount, but understand, hey, like I want to keep playing for the offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland. I don't think the Eagles can let Zach Bond out the door. Now, his representation might say like, all right, we want to play the market and see, what we can get, based off of last year's linebacker market. And so that will be interesting to see how that plays out in the coming weeks. But I think at the end of the day, both of those linemen are probably going to hit in Milton Williams and Josh Sweat.
Would you give Mekhi Becton $40 million over 4 years, roughly?
Yeah, I struggle with it. My guess is probably not. I think that when you look at, his body of work this year, there were certainly flashes of greatness, right? I mean, when you look at, his ability to move people off the ball in the run game, I do think, and honestly, I hadn't even thought about it, but him and going with Ben Johnson and the way that he has wanted those offensive lines to look in the past, with what they did in Detroit. I mean, that's a smash mouth unit. And so he certainly does fit that, Mekhi Becton. But I think when you look at, on the outside, he was a little bit of a liability in pass protection. When he plays inside, he's just a little bit too high. The pad level was a constant issue, especially in the run game. So, I would not necessarily say like, all right, I'm going to throw the bag at him, and make him one of the highest paid guards in football, which if he were to hit the open market, my guess is, Carman, is that he would probably, get into that realm. That's what's interesting about it is that I think when you look at Milton, when you look at Sweat, when you look at Bond, like all these guys are going to be in that same, $18 million a year, APY contract value wise. So all of them are going to be right in that same market. My guess is that, Becton will fetch that. I would want to keep that on the shorter end duration wise. So you're not necessarily connected to it long-term if possible.
All right, Fran, go ahead, Greg.
Just speaking of, guards that are potentially worth the money, you see Trey Smith on the other side of the ball. He had to go up against Jalen Carter quite a bit in the Super Bowl. I'm wondering, from your perspective, obviously the Eagles D-line mollywopped, the Chiefs offensive line, but how do you think Trey Smith did in that game specifically? And do you think he is worth the potential of 20 to 25 million a year to sign him as a guard?
Short answer, yes, I do think he's worth it. I think when you look at the overall body of work with Trey Smith, I mean, he is one of the best guards in football. He is tailor-made for that system. And with Ben Johnson, I think when you look at what he can do on an island in pass pro, but then also in the run game, I think that would be a no-brainer signing. My guess is that Chicago will have competition for his services, right? When you look at like New England, how much money they can throw around. Mike Vrabel would love to have that kind of physical presence to kind of get things started there with his culture up in New England. They've got a ton of money, like I said, to throw around. And so Chicago would have competitors there, but Trey Smith would make a ton of sense for Ben Johnson. I think he would be worth every penny.
All right, Fran, let's go into the guide here. And I guess let's start. It's interesting how you're grouping the offensive linemen. You're doing a sort of the interior exterior split here.
Yeah.
Who is I'm not that's just moving up your board, but who are you starting to get a little bit excited about that might be the second round 39-41 that spot for the Bears, or even down to 72?
It's a good question. I'm just looking at the board now. I think that, Donovan Jackson is a guy that I think would make a ton of sense, from Ohio State, but it was a 3-year starter at guard and then, was playing there in his 4th year this year. And then because of injury to Josh Simmons, the left tackle, they tried a couple other Band-Aids there and it just was not working. That offensive line was really in a rough spot. So they said, all right, let's kick Jackson out to tackle. And he did really well. I mean, you go into the playoffs and some of the defensive lines Ohio State went up against, he did an outstanding job. And so I think, look, at the end of the day, he's still a guard. I don't think that you're looking at him as a pure tackle, but I think there's something to be said for a guy that can kick out there in a pinch. Versatility is extremely important along the offensive line. And something I put in my article that just went up, today on the site. I think when you look at what Donovan Jackson can bring to the table, he's got that bully mentality, that ability to win in the trenches at the point of attack. attack in the run game and can be left on an island. I mean, for a guy that to kick out to tackle and perform that way, you feel really good about his ability to hold up in pass protection on the inside in the NFL. So Donovan Jackson, for me, as guys continuing to watch him, he was coming off a little bit of a down year last year in 2023. And so watching him over the summer, I'm like, all right, probably, a little bit overrated because people were talking about him as a first round pick. I don't know if I'm quite there, but as I watched more of him this year, continue to watch him up close, he's a guy that I'm like, yeah, you know what? He might sneak into the first round, but if not, like top of round 2, right in that range for the Bears, at the top of the round would make a lot of sense.
Put you in the impossible position here, Fran. You're Ryan Poles. You just put your rookie quarterback, that's the franchise, in a less than ideal spot this year. Now, granted, a lot of the, Caleb had his hand in a good share of the sacks as well.
Sure.
How would you, looking at if you were going to break down, you need 2 guards. Are you comfortable that one of them is going to be a rookie and I'm going to go sign a free agent? Would you even be comfortable enough to be, I'll take 2 guards. Like, if you're him in this spot, you got to get it right as soon as possible. Is there enough where there's no way that guy's floor is he can't play right now for me?
Me personally, I would say yes to all the above. Like, give me all the offensive linemen, right? Take as many swings as possible. It's almost to the point now with Chicago because, and it's the same way. This is not just unique to the Bears, but for a lot of these teams around the NFL, like, enough is enough. You look at Philadelphia, and one of the things that's been such a hallmark of the way that they've built their team, and you look at Kansas City as well. Kansas City, they lose that Super Bowl a few years ago to Tom Brady and the Bucs. They remake that entire offensive line in one offseason, years, right? Or, whatever the number is. So I think when you look at it, to me, like, throw as many resources as you can at the trenches, really beef up the line of scrimmage. And if that offensive line, like, mediocre, that shouldn't be like the goal. To be solid, like, shouldn't be the goal. You want to be one of the best offensive lines in football. I think that's the best way to raise the floor and raise the ceiling of what you're trying to do. And if you pair that with a great scheme, with what Ben Johnson's bringing to the table, not just from a game plan standpoint, but then also as a play caller, if you want to lean into that, I mean, what did they do in Detroit? Like, they had one of the best offensive lines in football, and it just gives you so much flexibility. And even in Philadelphia, one of the best offensive lines in football. Schematically, was it always like the most cutting edge thing watching this team every single week this year? Absolutely not. It was very basic. Sometimes they drop back and be like, there's 2 hitches over there. There's 2 hitches over there. Like, pick your matchup. That's not like cutting edge philosophical stuff. But when you got that offensive line, that can really kind of, again, raise that floor. And so to me, yeah, go get Trey Smith. And let's go draft Donovan Jackson at 40, and then we get into day 3, and there's a high upside guard or tackle. Like, bring them all in to me if I'm the Bears.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you look at the impact that Jalen Carter had on the Philadelphia Eagles, and you watch the Super Bowl, and obviously the Bears need offensive line help, but, defensive line was probably the star of the show at the Super Bowl. And so the Bears also still need defensive line help, and blue chip talent like Jalen Carter that the Bears chose to let walk and let you guys, bring him into your guys in Philadelphia's house. And I'm looking at Mason Graham, and every time I watch his tape, and I've watched him throughout his playing career at Michigan, I am tempted to trade up if I have to and use one of those 2nd-round picks, or maybe an additional 3rd-round pick if Ian Cunningham goes to the Jags, to get Mason Graham. But this defensive line class across the board is pretty deep. Yep. Are you pushing is Mason Graham worth pushing your chips in that he's a blue chip talent the way Jalen Carter has been for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Me personally, no. I would not view Mason Graham that way. I really like him. I think he's a really good player, but he's like kind of like the perfect encapsulation about how I view a lot of the top talent in this draft, where I think when you look at Mason Graham and you compare him to Jalen Carter, you compare him to Quinnen Williams, you compare him to other defensive tackles that have gone in this range in the last 7, 8, 9 years. And I would take all of his contemporaries ahead of him, right? I think he's just like a notch below. And I would say the same about Will Campbell, the left tackle from LSU. I would say the same thing about, honestly, like Abdul Carter. I love Abdul Carter. When he was watching his first game against West Virginia as a defensive end this year after moving from linebacker, I was like, man, there's really something to work with here. I do think he's going to go in the top 15, top 10. But taking him at like number 1 or number 3, I'm like, he's not Myles Garrett, right? Like he's not that guy. And so when you compare him to other guys that have gone that high, but that's just how I view this class. And I think that's going to be a way to couch all of these conversations we have all year long, is going to be like, In this class, yeah, I think this guy's going to go that high. In an ideal sense, maybe not. Now, I really like Mason Graham. I think he's as safe as a player as you're going to get. I love the way he plays. People are going to knock him for the arm length, my guess is, in a couple of weeks once that comes out in Indianapolis. But I think at the end of the day, like, he just checks so many boxes. He's got the ability to be, a dominant presence inside. I just think that he's more like high floor as opposed to high ceiling. I'd rather keep the picks, spend those elsewhere. And if you know what, like if Walter Nolan is there at 10, maybe, or if you want to like trade back and take a Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, like I think that might be a better use of the investment, especially if you trade back and get him, in the middle of the round. Trading could be tough here this year, but to me, I would rather hold on to the picks rather than move up to get Graham.
Okay, that being said, itchy trigger finger, don't trade up. Check. If he falls to 10, are you drafting Mason Graham at 10, or are you trading back because of guys like Walter Nolan and the amount of D tackles that are at your disposal here in this draft?
Yeah, defensive tackle is certainly one of the deeper positions in this group. And so I think that now it's going to come down to like, all right, Ryan Poles, Dennis Allen, Ian Cunningham, like you're having those conversations in the lead up. All right, would we rather, if Mason Graham falls to us, would we rather have Mason Graham and, insert Donovan Jackson, right? Would we rather have that? Or would we rather have, Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons, whichever tackle you want to insert there, and then Deion Walker, the defensive tackle from Kentucky, right? Would you rather, like, which combination do we feel better with in terms of our overall value? So you're going to have those conversations leading up. Me personally, I would feel good about taking Mason Graham at 10. You want to stay put. It always takes two to tango in terms of trade. So if you can't, you might not be able to get that trade partner back. My guess is, and this was something I wrote about as well in the piece that just went up today, is that trading it's going to be one of two things. Either there aren't going to be a lot of trades, or if there are trades in the top 20 of this draft, that it's going to be one of those where, like, man, like the trade value chart does not seem like this was a good deal. It could be one of those type of situations here this year where teams are like, all right, like they're not getting a lot of trade action, but we'd rather get something rather than nothing and take a player here that we don't love. Let's pick up a couple picks on day 3. So I do think that the trading could get a little tricky this year. That said, Mason Graham at 10, I think is fair value.
Let's get our guy. Let's get our guy Hippie Nerd in here, Greg. Hippie Nerd, you're the man. He's asking about the Michigan kid Kenneth Grant would pair well with Dexter. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like Kenneth Grant, the talent for sure. I do think that this is a little bit of a boom bust type of selection. He is like a true dancing bear from a physical standpoint, like a guys that big, that have those light feet. He's got disruptive ability against both the run and the pass. The production has not always been there. Didn't become a starter until this season, despite all of that physical talent. And so I think when you're looking at Grant, he is a guy that, I think that is probably better run defender than pass rusher. So that I think caps the ceiling as well. So that's why I've got him a little bit lower on my board compared to others, when you're looking at how he's viewed right now in the media. But I think when you look at Grant, physical talent for days, it's about making sure you can tap into that and try and get the most out of it. Now we've heard Ryan Poles say in the past, like, we grade the flashes, or they're going to bet on players with upside, right? And Kenneth Grant, he fits that bill. He fits that mold. And so, I don't know. I think 10, probably a little rich there. If you get into like the early stages of round 2, if you were there at that point, or if it's a trade back situation, I think Kenneth Grant would make some sense.
So we're a little over a week away from going to the NFL Combine. Certainly excited to talk to some of these guys. So who of this wide receiver class, because right now it seems like the Bears are going to run back Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, but unlikely to bring back Keenan Allen. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But obviously Ben Johnson's offense is predicated on speed. So who am I to talk to at the NFL Combine to try to find somebody that diamond in the rough? We're not going to get a Jamison Williams in the first round, but who's somebody that can fit that mold to try to help that role with the Bears offense and Ben Johnson?
Franny, he asked you this question knowing that he is going to talk to literally everybody there, but who should he talk to?
Well, look, I'll be right there with you, Braggs. I'll be trying to talk to as many of these guys as possible. Look, when you go into the first round, really the only name that stands out to me there from that standpoint is Luther Burden. And I think honestly, like, he's right in that range where the Bears are at 10. Like he came into the year like he was my wide receiver 1. Now, my guess is there's plenty of scar tissue there for Bears fans. We're like, no, we need trench play. We're not talking about receiver early in this draft. So let's put Luther Burden to the side. I really like what he brings to the table, but let's take him off the board. Isaiah Bond, I think, is an interesting player from a Jameson Williams comparison standpoint. Now, he started his career at Bama, transferred to Texas this year. They were kind of hoping that they would find lightning in a bottle, much like J-Mo did when he was at Ohio State. He transfers down to Alabama, has that huge year, and then it ends up being that first-round pick that the Lions trade up for, right? That didn't happen for Bond this year. A lot of people felt like he might stay put at Texas or even go into the portal. He ends up declaring for this draft. This guy's got juice. He would show up in big games, but he got a little bit knocked out with injuries this past year. Then the inconsistencies were there. So I don't think he's going to be the first-round pick that many thought he could be coming into the year. But you get into day 2, maybe early stages of day 3, and he ends up being that guy. I think that Isaiah Bond, if you're looking for speed, you could definitely do worse there.
If you and Fran, we always appreciate the time. You're the man. Become a diehard. Get all the goods on Fran's draft guide by signing up. $48, $4 a month, and Bears fans, I know you want this. It's a great way to support the show, and also a great way to get yourself a free t-shirt, and also a great way to tell Fran that you love him, because he does insane work and he never stops working, and he's our hero. At 72, do you think it's more likely the Bears can get an impact player at running back or wide receiver?
Probably running back this year, Carman. I think when you look at this class, I mentioned that defensive tackle is really deep. I would put running back and tight end, right there next to it. I think when you look at running back this year, I was just watching the other day, Omarion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina. He's my RB2. So he's not going to be there, I think, when we get to the 70s. But I think just an example of what I'm talking about. I just think when you get into day 2 of this draft, there are players on this group that are going to be impact players. Maybe they're not like the foundation RB1, but I'm watching Hampton. I'm like, why isn't this guy talked about like David Montgomery? Modern David Montgomery, not David Montgomery coming out of Iowa State when he was a mid-round guy. Like, I think when you're looking at Hampton, he's a top 50 type pick. You look at Caleb Johnson from Iowa, he's a top 50 type pick. So if you've got Ashton Genty with these two, and you got Travion Henderson from Ohio State, who's also probably in that top 50 conversation, all right, there's another group of guys that are right behind them that are also like, oh man, like I can really see this guy fitting in and finding a really good role. So to me, like when you get into the 70s, I think running back is probably a little bit deeper, where I think you'd probably find more of an impact player.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting too, because that was going to be one of my questions earlier. Like when you're looking for a trade back partner, can the Bears even build up a market at 10 to get people to trade up for Ashton Genty, or is because this running back class so deep, that's going to hurt anybody that, feels, the impulse to try to trade up? I know I'm already trying to bait the Cowboys at 12 to move up 2 spots, but maybe because this running back class is so deep that teams are going to hesitate in that.
Yeah, it's the conversation we had earlier about the Mason Graham versus taking one of the tackles. It's the same thing with Ashton Genty, right? It's the same thing, where you're talking Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Because of the depth at those positions, you can still say, all right, we're getting a great player here, but what if we waited and we got player X, player Y, player Z instead, and we paired that with this position? Those are all conversations that happen once we get like all the hay in the barn from a eval standpoint, from the pre-draft process. All the visits are done, combines over, pro days are over. Now teams have those conversations. Once you get into like late March, early April, all those teams are going to be having those talks, just like I'm sure we'll be having those conversations here on the show too.
Fran, do you know the Billie Jean Cooper DeJean song? You got that one?
Yeah, I think I've got it.
I mean, you're welcome to go into it. I think it's one of the amazing fun things about the Eagles winning. I don't know do you have a favorite moment from Sunday or even the weekend or after so far?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Cooper DeJean, you have your first NFL interception in the Super Bowl on your birthday and you take it to the house. I mean, that's that and to make it 17-0, that breaks the game open. And now that's when you realize you're like, man, like this might be a laugher. And to me, like, that's the moment I will remember 5 years from now, 10 years from now, was DeJean's interception for a touchdown.
I'll never forget it either, because my good friend Nick, who stood up at my wedding, is a diehard Eagles fan. I dropped off the very hoodie you're wearing to his house as a gift before the game, and he told me, it's Cooper DeJean's birthday. He's going to score a touchdown, and nice. I didn't put money on it. And as soon as he crossed the end zone, I was furious with myself that I didn't put $20 on it. Just I didn't even want to know what the odds were before the game, because I'm just disappointed that I didn't listen to my good friend. So,
Fran, I've done 8 zillion parody songs, and none of them have hit like however this guy hit on the Cooper DeJean is not a safety. He's that guy. That dude's my hero, even more so than some other of my musical heroes out there. All right, we'll do this again next week, friend. We can talk to you for an hour. Let's let you get out of here and do your thing. All right.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, friend. Appreciate it. Hey, just a reminder: become a diehard. AllCHGO.com. $48. Appreciate everybody as we hit the 1 hour mark on the TV. Thanks for watching. And yes, if you enjoy the show, great way to support us. Great way to get yourself a free tee. Great way to get yourself a draft guide. And great way to learn a whole lot more about Greg Braggs when he's doing his private talks in our Discord channel. So there's endless benefits. Right, buddy?
1000%. Go to allchgo.com/diehard to sign up. We appreciate everyone's support.
And I'm looking out the window here.
How's it looking?
It looks beautiful. It looks like it looked when the Rams were in town and Wilbur Marshall was on the field and Walter Payton was being flanked by Willie Gault and Dennis McKinnon and the great Jim McMahon. And Bears fans, they didn't stay home. They were at Soldier Field because they're Bears fans, because we're Chicagoans, and they were living their best life. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
So, this is a call not to be don't let Indiana be tougher than us. Don't let Addie go to school and kids around here don't. What kind of we got to be better. We can do this. We got to get back to our roots.
Well, we know Hogue would be ranting about this if he was here, but he's not. He's vacationing, so he doesn't get time to rant. We got a few super chats before we get out of here. I know we talked about Daryl Johnston, but we'll save that interview here as we're running a little over here.
You want me to tell you? You want me to tell you what Hogue? You want me to tell you what Hogue just texted me?
No, I don't. What did he text you?
I can't talk about it.
Gerard. I'm sorry, Steven. I'm stepping on your toes here. Garode. He literally puts it in parentheses how to pronounce it, and yet I still butchered it. Garode. $5 France dollars. How have we? Don't, Steven, do not give me that look. I'll make up whatever dollars I want to make up here. How have we got to Wednesday without mentioning the NFL in Dublin? Irish Garode, not the French.
That's our bad, but I just don't think the Bears are going overseas again for a minute. So that's probably why it hasn't.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to go over sooner rather than later, but I don't think we're going to Dublin this year. I wish we were. A couple years ago, they had a chance to go to Germany, and we fell short of that bidding. I know a team's going to Spain this year, some different things. So, I don't know if the Bears are going to make any trips, internationally this year, but I don't think it'll be very long before they end up in Dublin or somewhere else.
Well, let's just make it Australia then. That would be great.
Australia would be great. It sounds like a pretty long flight.
Yes, you would have to get your own transportation. I would be flying not on that flight because every time you haven't done it lately, but most times when I'm on a flight, you try to impact me in some way, shape, or form by grabbing me from behind or something just that's very uncouth that you need to apologize for. Next up in the super chat.
Yeah. Well, I won't talk about what you do on flights that I've noticed, but we'll just save that for off the air.
I'll go right ahead. It's the 1 o'clock hour. H. Taraski, go right ahead. $5. Green Bay at Chicago, Virginia McCaskey tribute spotlight on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football week 1. Okay, hey, let's start out with the Packers and try to get to 2.
They already always start Bears and Packers week 1, but now you have this, Virginia McCaskey angle to it. I think that's very likely. So, everybody talking about Bears possibly going to Eagles. I think this is the higher likelihood. And if you're going to have a primetime game to start the year, I'd rather it be at home. Like if we got to do it, I know nobody wants to do it, but the reality is most of the time they do have early season primetime games. I mean, even last year you played the Titans week 1, then week 2 you're at Houston on primetime Sunday Night Football. So it's only a matter of time. The Bears typically play 4 to 5 primetime games every single year. So we just kind of have to accept that as annoying as it can be.
You know who's working today, Braggs? Our guy Kevin. Naked Man Kevin, who we can't see today because, we're remote. The store's working. He was at Bears Rams with his dad in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't stop anybody.
Nope.
Yeah. Come on, man. All right. Oh, we're going to put a little Michael A. Pacer. Thank you for the Jay Glazer conversation yesterday. I work in a high school with kids who have mental health issues. So many suffer way more than they already do because of ignorance. Daily Pod listener, but snow day. Hey, Michael, it was our absolute pleasure to have the conversation with Jay Glazer and bring it. And it was we were talking about after the show yesterday, just seeing the reaction that it had, which makes us want to do more interviews like that. Because look, as we all know, it ain't easy out there. And we live in the toy world over here, and I know that this for Bears football, life and death and all that type of stuff, but it is also the toy world. And then we get into the real stuff, and to see it resonate like it did yesterday, it certainly, we were, I would say, pleasantly surprised that it hit like it did. Not that we were trying to score points or something like that by having that conversation.
No, but it was surprising to us because so much of our feedback at times when we're doing our show and we're having fun, we're doing something that's a little off script. You'll get a lot of stick to football. Go back. When are we going to talk about the Bears? And so the reality is that is the foundation of our show. Obviously, this is CHGO Bears Podcast. But we also do shows 5 days a week, 365 days a year. And at times we're doing 8 shows a week. And so we're going to talk about things that aren't just strictly Bears related. And we're always trying to connect with you guys on another level. And so to see not just the feedback of what we were talking about, but to watch the chat interact with each other and open up with each other, like that's a healthy thing and something that should be celebrated. And so it's a credit to everyone in the chat that, kept it positive, kept, the encouragement of others and was there for each other. And we try to be there for you guys. I try to be here for you guys as much as we can. And so we get, there's always, the infighting with Bears fans. That's what we do. It's just our nature. But yesterday was refreshing, and we all kind of opened up on a different level, and so did you guys. And so, yeah, we will continue to try to, do things that tap into, the human nature side of things. And I thought yesterday we succeeded in that. And so did you guys in the chat. So shout out to all you guys. We appreciate every single one of you.
$10 from Crystal. You're the best, Crystal. Carm, Bragg, Steven, my favorite combo. Take that, Hoke. We could have kept Canty off the show today. LOL. Anyway, love you guys. Bear down. Good one, Carm. Thank you, Crystal. I'm not sure what my good one was. Do you know what my good one was?
There was no good one when
there
it comes to you.
So, we got to get out of here because it's a snow day, and I'm going to go shovel and help out with kids who didn't go to school.
Are you sure you're going to be able to shovel in your condition?
What are you saying?
Well, I mean, you've been struggling lately, walking around.
I'm getting better, Greg, because you got me sick and I couldn't move for the entire weekend. And I was in the fetal position. I think it actually helped my ankle, so okay. I probably owe you a thank you. Mm-hmm. Also, with all due respect, I don't think that right now you can come at me. I remember, like, at one point you were like this. You were a titan. You were demolishing people over there. It was incredible. But somehow regression has hit. I know you'll get it back one of these days, but right now,
Hendricks says just end the show. You know what, Hendricks? Keep it up, and a harmonica will get harmonica today. Out. We got a $2 Irish chat from Garode.
Bonjour.
He says, bonsoir, Braggs.
I was wondering if anybody was going to get it, and your boy Boogie did. I did shave mid-show. I hadn't looked at myself in the mirror all day long.
You shaved mid-show.
I did.
That is a move.
Yeah. I was looking at myself and I was horrified because I've been doing yeoman's work around here today.
Now you know how we feel every day.
Yeah. And thank you for noticing. Your boy Boogie checks in the mail. All right, tomorrow, Daryl Johnston.
Well, yeah, we've got a lot of different interviews to still be played.
All right,
Obviously,
we'll
things got shuffled around, but we still have Ryan Leaf to be played. We still have Daryl Johnston to be played. We still have Ross Tucker. I got to go with my my senior producer, Gary Ross, to double check that we didn't play him last week. But I don't believe we played him on any of our live shows. So Ross Tucker to still be talked to. Tom Grassi, Packers rival, to get the Green Bay perspective. We're still going to talk to him from Radio Row last week. So we got a lot of different coverage, and may even have a surprise guest along the way of somebody we became friends with at Radio Row last week. So the gift that keeps on giving, Radio Row in New Orleans.
Has that guest gotten back to you today?
Yeah. Well, not today, but I mean, he texted me last night, so we're staying in contact.
Okay.
I promise it will happen. Why am I? What is this? What?
This is before or after, I hear.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Steven, did you notice before your boy
Mark,
Boogie?
I actually didn't. I'm upset I didn't.
Mark, can you try to replicate the face you're making in this picture, please? No. Look the other way. Like, you got to really, actually try to replicate it.
I thought I just did a great job.
Try again. No, try again. No, you're looking the wrong way. There we go. No. Yeah, that's pretty close. Okay.
This is what happens on a snow day, man.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should just stay here for the next 3 hours because what else is everybody doing? But hey, Mike Grom, $5. I miss Hogue. Interpret that how you will.
We can interpret that how we will.
We miss him too, Grom.
I don't miss him, and I'll interpret it by saying that you're an idiot. I love you, Mike. I know you give me a hard time.
Yeah. I thought it was actually a stealth move by me to upgrade my look for you all. I mean, I look at what I do. I did the hair up too. I mean, look at the hair in the other one and look at what it's doing right now.
All right,
Seriously.
look at that. Now I agree with Hendricks. We definitely do need that in this show,
dude's disheveled. This guy.
This is your Carm. This is your Carm on drugs.
Yeah, I know in the audio world, as I can hear Hogue in my ear, this is not great radio, but it's I think it's like decent radio. So thank you for indulging. All right, tomorrow's show just jam packed with everything from the Super Bowl, brilliance from Braggs, domination from me. My ankles are getting better. I'm so excited about my tennis game next week. I'm about to take myself off the DL and try to make a late run like Jordan in 95, 17 games left to try to win the winter season title. But I won't talk about that on the show. We'll just get on out of here. Great to see everybody, the Bears family coming together today to honor Virginia. Great to on a lighter note having Fran Duffy on the show. And thank you to Chris Canty once again for joining us down on Radio Row at the Super Bowl.
Thank you to Steven, as always.
Steven is our hero. Steven never stops working. Steven looks at me with such utter disdain, like he did yesterday. And what are you still doing here, Carm? It's 3:00. You know I'm there napping by now. I'm still working, but you should be home washing the dandelions.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's it. I think we did good here. I'm out of here.
Good luck to you, Greg. I'll see. I'm in studio tomorrow. Greg is not, but he's on the show. So we'll get to experience Greg Braggs in a special way tomorrow that I can control him deeply. And I look forward to that opportunity. So Steven will be turning off his mic at least 3 times. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there. Let's get tough for Chicago / Illinois. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all city like the mayor.